and welcome to the grand finale of the Smart Voices Debate Season 2, sponsored by Zambia Revenue Authority. My name is Chawanzi Sikaze, and I'll be your host for this brilliant battle of the brains. Ready or not, this show must go on. I will now read the rules of this debate. Number 1, no religious references, quotations, or concepts will be allowed. Number 2, physical evidence is allowed, which includes a demonstration of evidence and shall be handed over to the adjudicator. Number 3, the following items are prohibited: mobile phones, particularly smartphones, cameras, tablets, MPCs, PCs, and anything that can store data electronically and or connect to the internet. The sequence of the debate shall be as follows. The first speakers on each team present their arguments for 4 minutes. No interjections will be allowed. The second and third speakers will speak for 3 minutes. Interjections will be allowed. The speaker summarizing will be given 4 minutes. No interjections will be allowed. Interjections shall be done as follows. Interjections will be allowed after the first 1 minute of a speaker taking the floor. Only 2 interjections or points of clarity or points of information will be allowed per speaker. Each interjection will be done within 1 minute. The moderator, me, will enforce the rules allowing or rejecting interjections or calls for support. The timekeeper, our wonderful timekeeper, will pause the time every time a speaker is interjected. A team can propose to support a speaker after an interjection. Proposing Mukamambo II and opposing Mount Makulu to the motion that states, and I quote, "This House believes that income earned by writers, composers, visual artists, and sculptors from the sale of works that directly promote the Zambian culture should be exempted from taxation." I repeat, this House believes that income earned by writers, composers, visual artists, and sculptors from the sale of works that directly promote the Zambian culture should be exempted from taxation. Let's begin. I will now call upon the first speaker from the proposing side to start us off.
Through music, stories, colors, and clay, our artists keep Zambia's heritage on display. Let their creativity grow across the nation, free from the burden of taxation. But before I go any further, allow me to state that all protocol be highly and deeply observed. Bouncing back to the main motion, which states as I quote, "This House believes that income earned by writers, composers, visual artists, and sculptors from the sale of works that directly promote Zambian culture should be exempted from taxation." End of quotation. As the first speaker, or rather the icebreaker, it is my duty to define the following key terms. Income, money received during a certain period of work or from investments. Writer, a person who has written a particular work or who writes books or articles as an occupation. Composer, a person who writes music. Visual artist, someone who creates art that can be seen, like painting, drawings, and sculptures. Culture, appreciation and understanding of literature, music, and art. Exempt, free from a duty or requirement imposed on others. Taxation, imposing of tax, with reference from the Oxford English Dictionary. May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. Heading on to my step analysis, which goes as follows. Being the first speaker, I, Jen Mukumbuta, will talk about preserving Zambian cultural heritage and promoting tourism through cultural experience. Then Catherine Maboshe, the second speaker, will talk about boosting the creative economy, encouraging youth to pursue creative careers, and supporting mental and creative well-being. Then the third speaker, Nalukui Lungwevungu, will talk about government support for culture as a strategic sector, strengthening national identity, retaining local artistic talent, and empowering women and marginalized groups. Then Emanuela Nayame, the summarizer, will put up the rebuttals, summarize, and recommend. Let the step analysis please be passed on to the judges. Today, we base our arguments on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals to monitor our direction towards a brighter Vision 2030. But in alignment to today's motion, our main SDGs are SDG number 3, 4, 5, 8, 10, 11, and 17. May the SDGs please be passed on to the judges. As a nation, we must rise, recognize, prioritize, and realize that culture is a national prize worth protecting. As the ZRA reminds us,
My tax, your tax, our destiny.
Which leads me to my first point, which is preserving Zambian cultural heritage. When writers write books about culture, composers compose songs about our culture, and sculptors come up with artifacts all in the name of our culture. And once these people do this cultural heritage is passed on from one generation to another. And how we can support this important role is exempting them from paying taxation. In alignment to SDG number 11, which talks about sustainable cities and communities. Here with me is evidence which quotes to say the Kulamba ceremony is a custodian to one of Zambia's unique cultural practices called the Gulewamukulu, which was recognized by UNESCO as artifacts of intangible heritage. Imagine if our heritage and culture is actually putting us on the map to be recognized by UNESCO. Tax exemption on their income is the way forward for a brighter vision 2030. May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. Heading on to my next point, which talks about promoting tourism through cultural experiences. When people attend traditional ceremonies, festivals, or about cultural acts, they are offered authentic experiences, especially when they attend our traditional ceremonies, which we have in Zambia. And here with me is a gallery work taken by a photographer who falls under visual artists. And when such photos are taken, they actually qualify as to be acknowledged by certain organizations such as UNESCO and promoting our tourism and culture at the same time. Because these people, once they attend these traditional ceremonies, they are attracted by the dancing and the culture which is showcased in rhythm, dancing, and the clothes they wear, thereby generating GDP by attracting both local and international tourists. At the same time, they help generate income and revenue into the country. So exempting their income from being taxed is a brighter vision 2030 direction. May this please be passed on to the judges. 30 seconds to sum up.
30 seconds allowed.
By supporting cultural artists, we create, celebrate, motivate, and appreciate Zambia's heritage in response to ZRS Co.
Know your tax.
To strengthen this point, may the Good Samaritan please do as wise. With a strong stance on tax exemption, I raise my case.
Thank you so much, Madam Icebreaker, for not only breaking but shattering the ice. I will now call upon the first speaker from the opposing side. But before I do, I will kindly ask the speakers that while they're presenting through the play cards, may they please speak through the mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, for your call. Due to lack of time, may I simply say operator call be highly observed. Bouncing back to the motion that states in the court, this House believes that income earned by writers, composers, visual artists, sculptors from the sale of works that directly promote the Zambian culture should be exempted from taxation. Being the icebreaker, Chisha Violet from the opposing delegation, allow me to define the key terms that have been used. Income earned, money received, writers, authors of books or culture stories, composers, people that create music, visual artists, painters, designers, illustrators, sculptors, people that make carvings or statues, exempted to be free from. Therefore, the simplified motion states in the court, this House believes that the money received by authors of books or culture stories, people who create music, painters, designers, illustrators, people that make carvings or statues from the sale of works that directly promote the Zambian culture should be free from taxation. End of quote. I say no to this motion because of the following points. Members of this House, the real deal about this debate is cultural interest versus economic contribution. Meaning without creative arts and income, there is no Zambia. Imagine 72 tribes and 10 provinces all creating arts without taxation. What a way to lead Zambia into bankruptcy. Members of this House, allow me to quote from What to Buy in Zambia by Collins the Viking. Begin of quotes. Shtenga fabrics cost 80 to 450 kwacha per meter. Makishi masks cost 350 to 1,000 kwacha. Traditional drums cost 300 to 1,000 kwacha. End of quotes. May the Good Samaritan do
As wise.
Members of this House, if one Makishi must cost 1,500 kwacha, 10 of them will cost 15,000 kwacha. Members of this House, do we still need to exempt such people?
No.
Allow me to quote from LusakaTimes.com, begin of quote. Lusaka City Market Acting Manager Andrew Banda in an interview said the local authority collects 40,000 per day in market levies from shops, car parks, and stores and ablutions. End of quote. May the Good Samaritan do
As wise.
Members of this House, my evidence confirms that the Lusaka City Council charges market levies for store fees and rentals for market spaces, which are being used to fund infrastructure and sanitation. Members of this House, if a marketeer is selling goods at 2 kwacha can pay tax, why should a creative artist who is selling one Makishi Max at 1,500 kwacha be exempted? Secondly, affiliates of the House, creative arts should not be exempted because it creates inequality in the tax system. Pay as you earn and capital gain tax are the types of taxes that must be paid to the state by every individual. Allow me to quote from an Oxford Mini Dictionary and ZRA due dates, begin of quote. Tax, this is the money that must be paid to the states, skip quote, or employers under the section 71 of the Income Tax Act and Payee Regulation to deduct tax from payments and emoluments made to their employers. End of quote. May the Good Samaritan do
As wise.
Members of this House, a fair tax system requires that people earning income contribute to the national government revenue equally. Giving special tax exemption to other professions could be seen as discrimination against others. Members of this House, why should a creative arts teacher and a local language teacher pay tax while a creative artist be exempted when both are earning income? Members of this House, are they or not contributing to Zambian culture? Members of this House, let us remember that tax, this is the money that must be paid to the state by every individual as long as you are earning income. Allow me to quote from Constitution of Zambia Amendment number 2 of the 2016 Act number 43. Begin of quote. Pay taxes and duties lawfully due to the owing to the states. End of quote. May the Good Samaritan do
As wise.
Members of this House, thirdly, creative artists should not be exempted because artists benefit from government services. Artists benefit from services funded by taxes such as roads and infrastructure, just to mention a few. Allow me to quote from Open Zambia and News Diggers, begin of quote. One of the most notable projects is the expansion of the Great East Road. The government investment is expected to boost Lusaka's roads as a national transport hub, facilitating the faster movement of goods and services while enhancing daily commutes for thousands of citizens. Skip quote. We need 1.5 million for Ntrala. End of quote. May the Good Samaritan do
As wise.
Members of this House, artists are benefiting from the Great East Road. They use it to attend the Ntrala ceremony, which they're demanding for 1.5. Members of this House, the 1.5 million is taxpayers' money. So why should creative artists be exempted? 30 seconds to Sama.
30 seconds allowed.
Members of this House, let's talk about visual artists. Just a few months ago, Aisha Speed, a visualist, came in Zambia and went on a live stream and gained millions of dollars. Allow me to quote from Making Money at the Digital Frontier by Derek Silamina. Begin of quote. I depend on social media platforms such as TikTok, Facebook, Instagram to connect with my target audience, who in turn advertise on my pages for me to earn income, she says. End of quote. May the Good Samaritan do
As wise.
Members of this House, with these few but convincing points of mine, I submit.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for breaking down that motion for us. I will now call upon the second speaker from the proposing side.
Culture is the heartbeat of every nation's youth. Our writers tell stories of where we began. Our musicians unite every woman and man. When art promotes Zambia's rich tradition, it deserves encouragement, not taxation. But before I go any further, allow me to state that all protocol is highly and deeply observed. Bouncing back to my main motion, which states, and I quote, this House believes that income earned by writers, composers, visual artists, and sculptors from the sale of works that directly promote the Zambian culture should be exempted from taxation. End of quotation. Without wasting much of the time, allow me to move on to my first point, which states supporting mental well-being and creative freedom. Financial insecurity and stress limit creativity. Tax relief provides stability, allowing these artists to create more meaningful cultural works. With reference to SDG number 3, here's a piece of evidence extracted from Google that clearly states that art has a positive impact on mental health. To support this point, here's another piece of evidence extracted from Google that also states that arts and cultural works therefore prove to be effective in improving the mental well-being and health. May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. Moving on to my next point, which states encouraging youth to pursue creative careers and boosting the creative economy. With reference to SDG number 4 and SDG number 8, many young people avoid artistic careers because they fear financial instability. Tax exemption allows artists to reinvest their earnings into new projects. Affiliates of this session, if these artists aren't exempted from taxation, they'll lose most of their income, just as shown in this demonstration.
Speaker may not be interrupted.
But if these artists are not, if they are exempted from taxation, they'll save most of their income, thereby providing more job opportunities and investing their income in more projects, and it will later lead them to saving more of their income for them to invest in more things. May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. Affiliates of this session, if these artists are not exempted from taxation, they'll save most of their income.
Members of this debate session, we all know that these same young people that have been mentioned to say they are not participating into these arts that directly promote Zambian culture because they fear financial insecurity. This is simply because the arts sector does not adequately pay taxes as it should. Members of the House, think of this. Exempting them from taxation is not a good approach towards promoting the arts that directly promote Zambian culture. A better approach to this is by taxing them under Section 41 of the Income Tax Act. And this same revenue that is gained from already established artists will be used to fund and support new and upcoming artists. This way would be encouraging more and more people to venture into these arts that directly promote Zambian culture. Members of this House.
Point of defense.
Point of defense allowed.
Members of the House, here with me is a quotation from Spice FM showing that ZRA is to propose considered tax relief for arts industry because they've seen that even the artistic industry has the capability to bring better income and higher revenue in Zambia. May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. And here with me is more evidence showing that in other countries such as Ireland, the tax relief scheme was put in place, and if anything, 37% more income has been collected annually after the tax relief was put in place. May the Good Samaritan please do as wise.
Point of rebuttal.
Point of rebuttal denied. May the current speaker continue speaking.
Allow me to move on as though I was never disturbed. Affiliates of this session, if these artists are allowed to keep most of their income, they'll later invest them into making more art projects made out of environmental friendly materials. As you can see here, this piece of artistic work was made out of banana leaves. Can you imagine? Who can manage to make something like this out of banana leaves? May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. Not only that, but they're also able to make such things as this, and have gone as far as modernizing their skills into making t-shirts for traditional ceremonies, later attracting tourists into our country. May the Good Samaritan please do as well.
Point of interjection.
Affiliates of this session,
The
here's a
speaker
piece
is
of
in our last
evidence
1 minute.
extracted from Google that clearly states that Manic founder and CEO observes that it remains important for the government to consider providing tax incentives to increase job creation opportunities. May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. Moving on to my next point, which states irregular and small incomes. Affiliates of this session, majority of these artists earn irregular and small incomes. Affiliates of this session, here's a piece of evidence. 30 seconds to sum up.
30 seconds allowed.
Here's a piece of evidence extracted from Zambia reports that clearly shows that an artist in Zambia, Mumbayachi's studio, was burnt down by unknown people, where all his equipment was burnt down. Affiliates of this session, if he was earning enough income, wouldn't he have sprung out of this situation without having help from other artists like Slap D and Mambi? May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. Affiliates of this session, culture works by artists help Zambia chart, restart, outsmart, counterpart, and support an economy where culture itself becomes valuable art. With these valid and convincing points, I rest my case.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for that articulation. I will now call upon the second speaker from the opposing side.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, for your call. But before I go any further, allow me to pass my humble greetings to the following people. To the Chairperson, I salute. To the judges, I bow. In simplicity, I say all protocol be highly observed. Going back to the motion which stipulates as articulate, this House believes that income earned by writers, composers, visual artists, and sculptors from sale of works that directly promote the Zambian culture should be exempted from taxation. End of quote. Firstly, not all artists earn no income because some are able to make large, significant amount of money from their works. Members of this House through concerts and music sales. Members of this House, allow me to quote from an article, ZMP 2024 Top 10 Most Richest Musicians in Zambia. We have Yon Maps with an estimate of $3 million, followed by Market 2 with an estimate worth of $1.2 million. End of quote. May the Good
Point of
Samaritan please do.
interjection denied. The speaker is in her first 1 minute.
In Zambia, artists who promote culture and use local language are able to make a large, significant amount of money because their music attracts a large audience. Secondly, existing incentives. Members of this House, artists are already benefiting from the already existing incentives that are provided by institutions such as the National Arts Council of Zambia and cultural festivals such as the Kuomboka Ceremony and the Likumbilia Music.
Point of interjection.
Members
Point
of
of
this House,
interjection
allow
allowed.
me.
Affiliates of this session, the speaker clearly stated that not all artists are earn irregular and small incomes. But you clearly mentioned that some, specifically musicians, make a lot of money through concerts. So are you telling me that you are going to get that same the specific group of people who make a lot of money through concerts and exempt that and leave out the rest?
Point of addition.
Point of addition denied.
Point of defense.
Point of defense allowed.
members of this debate session, we all know that no specific sector in Zambia has a 100% success rate. We can include the civil servants. Not every civil servant in Zambia is successful or earning higher income, but they also pay as you earn. So why should artists be exempted from taxation if some of them are earning low income? Members of this house.
Point of addition.
Point of addition denied. May the current speaker continue speaking.
Allow me to quote from News Diggers. Begin of quote. The government has awarded 10 artists a grant of 50,000 kwacha each. End of quote. And may the good Samaritan please do.
As wise.
Therefore, tax exemptions are not necessary if support systems
Point of
already
interjection
exist, members of this
allowed.
house.
Affiliates of this session, the opposite delegation talked about how civil servants do not earn enough money. But affiliates of this session, here with me is evidence that clearly states from Zambia Daily Mail that the exempt threshold for pay-as-you-earn remains unchanged in 2025 for 5,100 at zero tax. Again, here with me is evidence that's clearly showing that artists have been exempted because their earnings, if only their earnings exceed 200,000 kwacha. Affiliates of this session, tell me how many people, how many artists earn this 200,000 kwacha from their sale of works? May the good Samaritan please do as well. So before you mislead the house, please clarify your point.
Point of rebuttal allowed.
Members of this debate session, I did not say civil servants earn low income. I said not all of them earn high income, members of this house. And at my school, I'm not yet done talking, Madam Speaker, please. Members of this debate session, I at my own school have some janitors that are working as just general workers, but they're under government payroll, and they also contribute to pay as you earn, but they're earning low income. And I stated clearly that no sector in Zambia is 100% efficient and has a 100% success rate. Some civil servants earn less, some civil servants earn more. Equally, to the musicians, some musicians earn more and some do not earn as much. But the civil servants are paying tax through pay as you earn. So why should the musicians and artists at large be exempted from taxation? It won't be fair, members of this house.
May the current speaker denied. May the current speaker continue speaking.
Therefore, members of this house, tax exemptions are not necessary if support systems already exist, members of this house. This would lead to an economic drawback for the country. My third point, it could lead to tax abuse and fraud. A broad exemption of tax abuse can lead to these people claiming non-cultural products as cultural. Members of this house, allow me to quote from Lusaka Times, dated 25th of November 2024. Begin of quote. Under the heading, ZRA wins tax fraud case against Sparks Mining Limited, covers millions in VAT. End of quote. And may the good Samaritan please do.
As wise.
Sparks Mining Limited was convicted for submitting false information about supplies just to claim tax benefit. Members of this house, this could lead to companies claiming that products are cultural just to avoid paying taxes. Now, where will we go if we don't have paying taxes? Because these taxes are the same thing that would fund museums. My fourth point, members of this house, the arts sector already contributes to Zambia's economy. Now get this. The arts sector contributes about 0.3% to Zambia's GDP. Now, if we exempt that 0.3% from Zambia's GDP, what is going to substitute for that 0.3, members of this house? Allow me to quote, members of this house from Pejaz under the heading, The Future of Public Funding for Zambia's Creative and Cultural Sector Amid Shifts in Global Financing. End of quote. And may the good Samaritan please do.
As wise.
Members of this house, allow me to illustrate. 30 seconds to sum up.
30 seconds allowed.
Here is 100 kwacha. If we exempt a fifth and away from 100 kwacha, will the value still be the same?
No.
This is the same thing that will happen, members of this house. Little or not, if you exempt a fifth and away from 100 kwacha, it won't be the same. It's the same thing that will happen if you exempt that 0.3% from Zambia's GDP. Members of this house, allow me to refute and to rebuttal one of the points raised by the preposition. They said it promotes tourism. Now, members of this house, other businesses, other sectors contribute to tourism, but they still pay taxes. Then why should these businesses, these artists should be exempted? With these few but convincing points of mine, I rest my case.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for giving us those rebuttals. I will now call upon the third speaker from the proposing side.
From poems to paintings, our culture is shown. Through art, our history is proudly known. If their works uplift our nation's foundation, they should be freed from taxation. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, for your call. But before I go any further, allow me to say all protocol is highly and deeply observed. I stand here proposing the motion which states, as I quote, This house believes that income earned by writers, composers, visual artists, and sculptors from the sale of works that directly promote the Zambian culture should be exempted from taxation. End of quotation. And I strongly propose due to the following reasons. My first reason being government support for culture as a strategic sector. Members of the House, as we know, government already supports strategic sectors such as the agricultural sector by providing subsidies on things like farming inputs. Therefore, in the same manner, they should also support the cultural sector by providing tax exemption, because the cultural sector protects our national heritage, tradition,
Point of
culture,
interjection
and
denied.
our
The
values.
speaker is in her
Here
first
with
list.
me is a piece of evidence showing that the government itself says that the arts and creative industry has the potential to significantly increase the contribution to the gross domestic product, which also known as GDP. May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. Furthermore, is a piece of evidence showing that
Point of interjection.
Point of
showing that
interjection
in
denied.
Ireland,
Speaker is in her first 1 minute.
the tax exemption scheme was introduced in Ireland, and it's working effectively, showing that in Ireland they've been collecting 37% more income annually than before the tax exemption scheme was introduced. May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. Moving on to my next point, is about strengthening national identity and
Point of
unity.
interjection
Culture
allowed.
works help citizens.
Members of this debate session, the precurrent speaker clearly stated that the government is already supporting the arts sector. But this is because they're still contributing a certain amount to Zambia's gross GDP. As you heard from my fellow speaker here, it's contributing about 0.3% of GDP. But if we remove it, why should artists be supported from other people's tax revenue? Members of this House.
Point of defense.
Point of defense allowed.
Members of this House, I clearly stated that the government says that even though the artistic industry still contributes low GDP, it has the potential to increase the GDP.
Point
So
of
please
rebuttal.
clarify your point
Point
before
of
you
rebuttal
interject.
allowed.
Members of this House, if the arts sector has the capability of contributing more to Zambia's GDP, then why should they be exempted if they have the full capability? Members
of
of this House of
defense.
Debate, here with me is evidence from Zambia Monitor, which states, and I quote, "The arts sector can boost Zambia's GDP beyond 1% contribution," says Minister Nkandu. And to the Good Samaritan, please do as well.
Point of addition allowed.
Affiliates of this session, the proposing delegation is not only talking about the economic sector, we're also trying to bring about the environmental and the social sector. So please, clarify your points.
May the current speaker continue speaking.
Strengthening national identity and unity. Culture works help citizens know about their history, their traditions, and their values. Therefore, exempting tax from such culture works encourages the artists to continue creating such culture works in form of books, music, and poems. An example of a song that helps us know about our heritage is our very own national anthem. May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. Another example is the song Kumawa by the Sakala brothers. When we listen to those songs, they teach us about our history and traditions, and we learn more about Zambia's heritage. We have a better shared understanding about our heritage, and in the end, we have better national pride and unity. With reference to SDG number 4, it's about quality education. May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. Moving on to my third point, is about retaining local artistic talents. Members of this House, there are many talented Zambians in our country who leave our country in search of better financial opportunities.
Point of interjection
Therefore, if tax
denied.
is
The
exempted
speaker
from
is
the
in
money
her
that
last
these
1
people
minute.
receive, it's going to give them a reason to stay in our country, develop locally from within the boundaries of our country, instead of them going out of the country simply because in other countries they'll find better opportunities. Better they contribute from within the country, showing that they are Zambians contributing for Zambia, making us know our cultural heritage better and our traditions better. Moving on to my last point, was about empowering women and marginalized groups. Tax exemptions provide greater economic opportunities for women, rural artists, and community cultural groups who may face financial barriers. With reference to SDG number 5, which is about gender equality, and SDG number 10, 30 seconds to sum up, which
30
talks about
seconds allowed.
reduced inequality. Here with me is a piece of evidence showing that these same women who are going to empower are taking things and making them environmentally friendly by making things such as earrings using environmental friendly products. May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. And when tax is exempted, in the end, there's a strong support for Zambian culture when we empower these women and marginalized groups. May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. Writers, composers, visual artists, and sculptors influence, educate, integrate, and motivate Zambia's heritage on a global stage. And with that, I rest my case.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for those informed points. I will now call upon the speaker, the third speaker from the opposing side.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, for your call. Before I go any further, allow me to say all diplomatic courtesy be highly and sincerely observed. Standing before you is Kasochi Gladys, opposing to the motion that states, and I quote, "This House believes that income earned by writers, composers, visual artists, and sculptors from the sale of works that directly promote Zambian culture should be exempted from taxation." End of quotation. I strongly oppose to this motion. But before I go any further, allow me to refute and to rebuttal to one of the points that was stated by the proposing delegation. They said exemption will promote cultural heritage. But affiliates of this House, I beg to differ. Allow me to quote from a taxation and cultural heritage report which states, as I quote, "Cultural heritage could be a key driver for socio-economic development and taxation may play an important role in its enhancement." End of quotation. May the Good Samaritan please do. Members of this House, if this sector is exempted from taxation, what taxes are they expecting to enhance their cultural heritage? Moving on to my points that strongly oppose to this motion is firstly, revenue loss. Affiliates of this House, exempting income from taxation could lead to revenue loss for the government, potentially impacting public services and development. Allow me to quote from an Action Aid report which states, as I quote, "There are currently revenue leakages in Zambia's tax system due to inefficiencies in tax administration, a large informal sector, as well as tax evasions and avoidance, hence revenue loss." End of quotation. May the Good Samaritan please do. Members of this House, if these creative artists are exempted from taxation, don't you think this will
Point of
further...
interjection denied. The speaker is in her first 1 minute.
Affiliates of this House, if these creative artists are exempted from taxation, don't you think this will further worsen the already existing leakages in Zambia's tax system? Instead of exemption from taxation, the government can collect this revenue to fund public services such as education as well as healthcare. Allow me to quote from an African Growth and Opportunity Act report which states, as I quote, "Tax revenue plays a critical..."
Point of interjection allowed.
The precurrent speaker talked of loss of revenue. When we talk of tax exemption on the income, to specify the irregular income from artists who are promoting our culture, it does not mean these people are completely exempted from paying tax. They still pay value-added tax, and they still pay tax through different sorts, whereby they buy something in shops, see tax, they still pay value-added tax. When we talk of tax exemption on their income, it's only to promote our heritage. In alignment to SDG number 17, which talks about partnership for the goals. As we are developing the country, we're trying to balance up in all sectors. These people, once they are performing at traditional ceremonies, they dance. A lot of people attend those ceremonies, causing traffic jams. At the end of the day, those people who are in those traffic jams actually do pay tax by the toll gate, increasing the GDP. Partnership for the goals, not only the burden on the government, but as the citizens of Zambia living in a democratic state, we contribute.
Point of addition denied. Point of rebuttal accepted.
Members of this House of Debate, the precurrent speaker provided an interjection to say the cultural sector is actually lacking support, and they have inefficient, or rather lack in terms of funding and support, and that they are earning irregular income, and they'll still be contributing to value-added tax. But members of this House, every citizen in Zambia, as long as you buy a product from any formal shop or store, you will be given a receipt, and you will see that value-added tax is included there. But our motion is saying, this House believes that income earned, the income earned is the one that should be excluded from taxation, not VAT and indirect taxes. This tax that is being talked about is actually direct tax, members of this House, because it is being deducted from the income they are earning from their sale of works. Members of this House of Debate.
Point of rebuttal allowed.
Affiliates of this session, thank you very much, precurrent speaker, for bringing out that point that contributes to the proposition. Affiliates of this session, the precurrent speaker talked about income earned. Exactly. Affiliates of this session, if we look at what the cultural sector contributes to the country, these people pay turnover tax. Affiliates of this session, this means that the money that they sell their products for goes directly to the government. Affiliates of this session, imagine now if they give all their money to the government, what will they remain with? There are people who need apprentices. So what will the people do? What will they remain with? The other fact that we forgot to talk about is that these people do not only just pay value-added tax, affiliates of this session, they also bring back the GDP through tourism. So please clarify your point.
Point of defense.
All points denied. May the current speaker continue with her point.
Affiliates of this House, instead of exemption from taxation, the government could rather collect these funds to fund public services such as education as well as health. Allow me to quote from an African Growth and Opportunity Act report which states, as I quote, tax revenue plays a critical role for countries to create room in their budgets to increase spending on social services such as education and health as well as public investment. End of quotation. May the Good Samaritan please do. Moving on to my second point, which is culture can be promoted without full tax exemption. Affiliates of this House, the government can and is already supporting these artists through grants, partial tax reliefs, subsidies, and grants. Members of this House, allow me to quote from a Soja Entertainment report which states, as I quote, UNESCO awards 95,000 euros.
Point of order allowed.
Affiliates of this session, the precurrent speaker talked about total or complete exemption. Affiliates of this session, according to what we have as our motion, it does not say full exemption. Like we mentioned earlier, these people still pay value-added tax. It is not complete or full exemption. No, they still pay value-added tax. So please clarify your point.
Point of defense?
Point of defense allowed.
Members of this House? Now, members of this House, the motion clearly says, artists, this income that earn, I beg your pardon? This House believes the income, artists that earn income directly, those who earn directly. Now, members of this House, my current speaker clearly said that it's directly, it's income directly. No one is talking about value-added tax, no one is talking about sin tax, and no one is talking about this excise duty. So please, may you get that.
Point of addition.
Point of defense denied. But point of addition allowed.
Members of this House, our motion is clearly talking about income earned by writers, composers, visual artists, and sculptors from the sale of works that directly promote the Zambian culture. Members of this House, if we exempt these people from paying taxation, it will further narrow Zambia's tax base. And what our motion is also alluding to is full tax exemption, members of this House. If they're not being exempted, then what is it that they're talking about?
May the current speaker continue her points.
Members of this House, what my second point was talking about is culture can be promoted without full tax exemption. Members of this House, the government is already supporting these artists through grants, festivals, partial tax reliefs, as well as subsidies. Allow me to quote from a Soja Entertainment report which states, as I quote, UNESCO awards 95,000 US dollars to Zambia for creative industry growth. End of quotation. May the Good Samaritan please do.
As wise.
30 seconds to sum up.
30 seconds allowed.
Members of this House, in my conclusion, I say no to this motion at hand due to the following reasons. Firstly, revenue loss. Secondly, culture can be promoted without full tax exemption. And thirdly, a narrow tax base. May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. With these few but convincing points of mine, I rest my case.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for educating us on this matter. I would also like to advise other speakers to speak into the mic like the previous speaker. I will now call upon the summarizer from the proposing side to get us into the final part of this debate.
Culture is our pride and our nation's foundation. When artists promote the beauty of Zambia's culture, they deserve appreciation and not taxation. But before I go any further, allow me to state that all protocol is deeply and highly observed. Back to my motion, which states, as I quote, this House believes that income earned by writers, composers, visual artists, and sculptors from the sale of work that directly promotes Zambian culture should be exempted from taxation. End of quotation. Affiliates of this session, as a summarizer, it is my duty to give out the following rebuttals. Allow me to rebuttal the opposing delegation. The first speaker talked about how artists are exempted from paying tax, which leads to bankruptcy. Affiliates of this session, here with me is evidence that clearly shows that these people do pay tax. They do pay tax. In fact, the motion does state that directly. But affiliates of this session, what we have to remember is that when these people pay tax, they pay turnover tax, meaning that all the income earned from what they sell is taken away. Moving on to what their second speaker said it does not lead, it leads to revenue loss. Affiliates of this session, this does not lead to revenue loss because they still pay other taxes through other means such as value-added tax, sin tax, that really deposited their money. And not only that, we also have to remember the fact that janitors do not contribute to the culture. Affiliates of this session, their third speaker talked about janitors. Affiliates of this session, where have you seen janitors contributing to the cultural heritage of the country? Moving on to my points, here with me is a chart that clearly shows the 3 pillars of sustainable development. Affiliates of this session, unlike the opposing delegation that is just concentrating on the economic sector, as a proposition have incorporated the environmental and social sector. Affiliates of this session, what we have to keep in mind is that if one sector is removed, everything comes crumbling down. May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. Moving on to my additional points, my first one being protecting indigenous knowledge and languages. Affiliates of this session, artists help document traditional knowledge, oral histories, proverbs, and languages that might otherwise disappear. For example, we have writers and storytellers that document folk tales and oral traditions from communities throughout Zambia. Affiliates of this session, this relates to SDG number 11, which talks about sustainable cities and communities. Here with me, I have evidence that clearly shows a song that was written and sung by Akim Simkonda. Allow me to use our local language, Bemba. Wanawanzi, Sunganeni, Temaneni, Ishivaneni. Affiliates of this session, if this song does not only protect our indigenous languages, but it also teaches us how to cooperate. Affiliates of this session, who in this room would pay tax if you don't have cooperation? May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. Moving on to my second point, which talks about strengthening Zambia's international cultural reputation. Affiliates of this session, artists represent Zambia on the global stage through music, literature, and visual arts. Their works promote cultural exchange and enhances the country's global reputation. Affiliates of this session, here with me I have a drum commonly known as Ingoma. Affiliates of this session, this has gained global reputation because if you go to the Western side and ask them about this, they are going to tell you that this belongs to Africa's cultural heritage. May the Good Samaritan please pass this on. To show that indeed I am the summarizer, here to summarize, analyze, otherwise you not understand, we as a preposition have come up with a problem tree that summarizes all the problems we have talked about, starting from our root causes, our core problem, and the negative effects that the opposing delegation is trying to support. How low of them? Affiliates of this session, as the root causes, we have globalization overshadowing local culture, tax burden on artists, and for our core problem, we have insufficient support of Zambian cultural creators due to taxation. And for our negative effects, we have weak creative economy and fewer jobs, reduced tourism and cultural exports, and reduced national pride and cultural identity. Affiliates of this session, as the summarizer, it is my duty to give the solutions and the recommendations. As for our solutions and our recommendations, we have our roots, we have our core, and the positive effects that the proposition is trying to bring out to the government. Affiliates of this session, for our root causes, we have introduction of tax exemption for all cultural works. And then for our core solution, we have tax exemption for income earned from works promoting Zambian culture. And for our positive, 30 seconds to sum up, please.
30 seconds allowed.
Thank you. And for our positive effects, we have increased tourism and cultural exports, increased national pride and identity, and strong preservation of Zambia's cultural heritage. Affiliates of this session, or rather honorable judges, supporting our culture creators is an investment in Zambia's heritage, economy, national pride, and the well-being of our communities. We strengthen identity, nurture talent, and secure the prosperous future, just as ZRA reminds us.
My tax, your tax, our destiny.
Guided by the Zambian Revenues Corps.
Let's build a better Zambia together.
With that being said, affiliates of this session, I raise my case.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for that detailed summary. I will now call upon the last speaker of this debate, the summarizer from the opposing side.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, for your call. I am Moses Banda, the opposition summarizer. But before we get to business, allow me to say, all protocol, be highly observed. The motion states, and I quote, "This House believes that income earned by writers, composers, visual artists, and sculptors from the sale of works that directly promote Zambian culture should be exempted from taxation." End of quote. But before I go any further, allow me to move on to refute and rebuttal the allegations brought forth by the proposing delegation. The first one, the summarizer from the proposing delegation, during an interjection, said, what if all these artists pay all their tax to ZRA? How would they survive? But members of the House, there is no taxation system in the world that demands 100% of a person's income. Have you ever heard of it, members of the House? Secondly, and she also said I said that janitors at my school contribute to Zambia's culture. Members of the House, that is not what I said. I emphasized on the point of a janitor saying he earns low income, yet is paying taxes. So why should artists who are earning low income be exempted from taxation? It simply won't be fair. Then the third rebuttal is that the summarizer from the proposing delegation also said in relation to us, quoted how low of them. Members of the House, is it within the boundaries of debate for a speaker to provide such direct confrontation? Members of this House, allow me to get to my points. Number one, revenue loss. Exempting the income artists earn from the sale of works from taxation will lead to revenue loss for the government, potentially impacting public services and development projects. Members of this House of Debate, allow me to quote from TECR Zambia, which states, and I quote, "The 2023 expenditure report estimates that Zambia's forfeited revenue equivalent to 1.5% of GDP through a variety of mechanisms, including reduced rates, exemptions, and suspensions." End of quote. And to the Good Samaritan, please do as wise. Moving on to my second point, further narrowing of Zambia's tax base. Members of the House of Debate, Zambia's tax base is already small. Exempting the income artists earn from taxation will only lead to the further narrowing of Zambia's tax base, and it won't solve anything but only bring more problems. That's like adding poison to an already poisoned substance, members of the House, or rather cutting a wound that was already open. Allow me to quote from a research done by Tamuka Shalovala under the title Narrow Tax Base, which states, and I quote, "Speaking during the 2025 tax sensitization workshop for non-state actors in Lusaka this morning, ZRA Commissioner General Dingani Banda says it is disheartening that only 983 taxpayers, representing a mere 0.2% of the total taxpayer population, are tax compliant and active. To the Good Samaritan, may he, she, please do as wise." Lastly, members of this House of Debate, the real deal about this debate is cultural interest versus economic contribution. It has been seen mandatory that artists should pay tax, members of this House of Debate. Allow me to quote from a publication published by Zambia Daily Mail dated 24th of September 2014, which states, and I quote, "The NAC, National Arts Council, has urged the government to consider taxing the arts and cultural organizations under the turnover tax category." End of quote. And to the Good Samaritan, please do as wise. Members of this debate session, I would also like to highlight that paying tax is not a burden. So the artists should be paying tax because it is not a burden on them, but rather a responsibility that every Zambian citizen earning an income should pay. Members of this House, allow me to also further outline that let us not only focus on dancing to the nice cultural music our artists make for us today, only for us to go bankrupt as a country tomorrow. Members of this House of Debate, would it make sense? No. Allow me to demonstrate. This here is Zambia. This here is Zambia. And if we only focus on the cultural interests, we will see that Zambia will not be balanced. Members of this House of Debate, Zambia's economy will be unstable. But if we strike a balance by letting the artists pay taxes, we will see that Zambia's economic development will equal to the cultural sector. Members of the House, this here is the solution. Cultural, 30 seconds to sum up, please.
30 seconds allowed.
Members of the House, by doing this, allowing the artists to be paying taxes and further letting them to continue paying taxes, we will ensure that Zambia's cultural sector continues to flourish, while Zambia's economic development and economic growth will not lie in ashes. Members of the House of Debate, this here is a solution. Having sealed this argument with concrete evidence, I rest my case.
Thank you so much, Mr. Summarizer, for ending this debate on a high note. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of this wonderful, this brilliant battle of the brains, this clash of wits. But don't worry, House of Intellectuals, wonderful viewers, this is not the end. Stay tuned after the break while the judges tally the results. Who do you think has won? Mukamambo II, Girls Secondary School, Mount Makulu. Stay tuned. It is now the moment we've all been waiting for. The results are in. The judges have decided. House of Intellectuals, viewers, who are you rooting for? Mukamambo II, the proposers, or Mount Makulu, the opposers? Who do you think has won? It is now time for the results. Mukamambo II, Girls Secondary School. You have scored a total of 900 178 points. Whereas Mount Makulu, you have scored a total of 1,035 points. Which means that Mount Makulu are the winners of the season 2 of the Smart Voices debate. But wait, there's more. There's more. We also have the results for the best speaker of this debate. Is it from the opposers? Sorry, is it from the proposers? Or the opposers? The best speaker is Moses Banda from Mount Makulu. Thank you so much to the adjudicators, to the speakers, to the honorable judges, and to the wonderful viewers at home. This was truly a grand finale. I will now hand over to Mr. Oliver. Please.
And straight away, I would like to invite our guest of honor, the Mrs. Yvonne Chulu, who is the Director of Secondary Education, our Acting Director, Executive Support, and also representatives from DEBS, Lusaka region, to just join us by the stage for the prize-giving ceremony. Congratulations to the winners, Mount Makulu, the runners-up, Mukamambo, the second girls' secondary school. I'd like to mention that all the pupils from the winning side will walk away with laptops. The runners-up, Mukamambo, the second, the school walk away with 40,000 kwacha. And the pupils will also walk away with tablets. And the school in third position will have a 20,000 kwacha check. And this is what we mean when we say taxes build Zambia, taxes build a better Zambia. We ensure that whatever is collected is plowed back into the community, and in this manner we are giving back to society through the debate. Congratulations, Mukamambo the second. And just quickly before we go on stage, the winners, I'd like to, I don't know why the prize has been kept a secret from me, Moses, but once again, congratulations. I would like to call upon Moses Banda for emerging as the best speaker. They're already calling for you to become the head boy. He's already the head boy. The Director of Secondary Education must be proud. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, a big round of applause to Mount Makulu for emerging as the winners of the second season of the Smart Voices debate. And they walk away with 60,000 kwacha as a school and laptops for all the participating pupils. At this time around, we invite Mount Makulu to receive their prizes. The school administrators, the coordinators, thank you so much for being with pupils throughout the season.